Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
Colton Brown. How are you, sir?
Hello.
Dramatic pause for effect. That's what that is.
Yeah, I appreciated it. I'm doing well. Been binging a show over the past weekend. Not gonna lie, had to run through about 5 or 6 episodes worth of content, but I made it, and now we're here, and now I'm ready to talk about Lovecraft Country in celebration of Halloween weekend coming up this weekend. So I think that's very exciting on all fronts.
Nice. So have I. Well, I haven't been grinding it, but I've been following it along since it came out. But yeah, exciting episode. I'm pretty excited to talk about this show.
Good. You got any big plans for Halloween weekend? Expecting any trick-or-treaters? Are you going to throw some candy at them from about 6 feet away or anything like that?
So what we have is one of my coworkers' daughters having a Sweet 16 little get-together at the house. She asked me and Sarah and I to attend. So we'll probably swing in there after work on Saturday. And then Sarah's got a family tradition. It's like a neighborhood tradition in Stagecoach where the people in the cul-de-sac there get together. Naturally with Halloween, I the vast majority of people wear masks, I guess. So should be a somewhat healthy environment, I hope. We'll see what happens, but the block party is what it's called, and everybody just kind of hangs out around the cul-de-sac there, so we'll see what happens. That's preemptively, that's what we have going on this weekend. What about yourself?
I expect I'll probably just be hanging out, watching some Gator football. Hopefully they can pull off a win this time around, if they can field a full team that isn't infected with coronavirus, that is. But yeah, it should be pretty low key. But maybe some spooky stuff. Maybe we'll get some spooky stuff to watch on the old television. The old television set, and then yeah, it should be all right though. But anyway, I just asked you. I just wanted to flag it because this will be coming up. This will be coming out, I guess, for our listeners, probably just a couple days ahead of Halloween. But we didn't really get an opportunity to do some real horror-esque bonus episodes like we've done in years past. So we devoted our attentions to 10 episodes of a horror television show in the form of Lovecraft Country. Mostly horror, some other genres certainly spiced into it, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. But yeah, this is for all intents and purposes our horror / Halloween episode for our listeners. So hopefully
episode.
It's the spooky episode. That's right. So hopefully our listeners enjoy that, and hopefully they have a nice Halloween and Halloween weekend as well. So on the subject of Lovecraft Country, I actually do have a little bit of a fun fact. If you're ready to hear it,
yeah, drop what you got.
I think we've actually talked about this a little bit in the past, so maybe it's not exactly news to you. And honestly, probably the last time we talked about Lovecraft Country in terms of like the trailers and stuff that came out, that's probably when it came up, if I had to guess. But Lovecraft Country obviously draws its name from the writer H.P. Lovecraft, who is famous for doing some real otherworldly shit, horror fiction, basically in the 20th century. So, over 100 years ago, he wrote a bunch of this stuff, and, he's kind of considered a pioneer in the genre in terms of just the kind of crazy out there.
Strange fiction.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I think is what it's called.
Yeah. So that sort of thing, he's kind of one of the central figures in that. And as it turns out, he's
cosmic horror.
He's a huge racist as well. So, that's kind of the fun fact here, is to say that, Lovecraft obviously had a lot of these ideas that, he put on his on the paper and and was able to publish in these, which to this day I think are still pretty revered by people in terms of like for the content of what they are. But at the same time, it is worth pointing out that Lovecraft himself was a pretty bad dude, to say the least. it's clear that a lot of his work was tinged by his feelings towards what he considered inferior races, and so obviously, it's interesting that he, was able to create this legacy for himself, but it's obviously tainted by the man, in terms of clearly his feelings. I think there's a like a BuzzFeed quiz or something like that. That's is this a Hitler or Lovecraft quote? Which probably suggests the kind of nature of some of the shit that he said. I think even the show itself.
So not only was he a racist, he was a staunch white supremacist. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, a lot of his.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm looking at an article by Vox which talks about how he had a deep fear in his writings of race mixing, the concerns about impure bloodlines and stuff like that. So it's I think white supremacy is probably a good word for it. But.
Admittedly, I mean, I haven't done a deep dive on a lot of his stuff, and I mean, I have read a few books, and I mean, I was younger when I read them, but I never saw all of that. So I it's either in stories I've never read, or just like him existing outside of his fiction that a lot of that racist stuff was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is honestly just, it's not exactly on the written page as. I mean, I think some of it's pretty plain on the written page, but I think a lot of it is taking his feelings towards people, people of color and such, and turning them into different, characters. Like I'm seeing something in this about fish people, So he's taking them and kind of turning them to something that's, if you're just looking at it at face value, you're not really seeing what's really lurking beneath the surface in terms of what he's writing about. Where you can kind of just accept it and say, oh, this is fine. There's nothing wrong with this. And then you kind of look at the context of what he's talking about, and it's like,
he's making black people fish people.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Son of a bitch.
So that's kind of the idea.
Basically, I took it on face value.
And
I know.
I mean, I'm not.
I know the story you're talking about.
I haven't read everything that Lovecraft wrote, obviously, and so maybe there's some stuff in there that's completely out of the out of the realm of what we're talking about now. I'm not sure that the Cthulhu itself, I guess, is necessarily representing anything that is more sinister in nature beyond just this tentacled monster or anything like that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I really don't know, but
the people that worshipped Cthulhu and the elder gods and stuff, I think those were the fish people.
Yeah, maybe.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I've always found his stories really interesting. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I guess you can have interesting stories and still, be from a shitty person.
Yes.
You know what I
mean?
Yeah,
it's not that there needs to be some massive erasure of his work to say that there's no value in it whatsoever. It's to say that you kind of have to understand the context of it and look at it and say you can appreciate certain things about it while still recognizing, hey, this guy fucking sucks. I guess it's the argument of separating the art from the artist, isn't that? That's kind of how it goes with a lot of people. And
well, then you know what I say. Kudos to I think Jordan Peele. Is Jordan Peele a producer on the show?
He is. Yes.
Kudos to Jordan Peele for having a black cast and putting out the show, and it's largely about Jim Crow America and black people and white supremacy and all this stuff with the title Lovecraft Country in it.
Yeah, so
it's a nice little reversal.
Exactly. I mean that's kind of what. So the show is based off of a 2016 novel, very recent novel, and that's kind of the idea is, hey, let's take the writings of Lovecraft and kind of turn them on their head, and take the idea of Lovecraft in terms of a storyteller and Lovecraft as a shitty human being and kind of synthesize those into a storyline that uses a lot of the things that worked about his stories while really directly confronting and tackling the inherent racism in all of them. It's a really kind of interesting conceit, I think, for both a novel and a TV show. So yeah, that's a little bit of I guess a little bit of a primer for who Lovecraft is, and kind of how this book and TV show kind of came to be, and kind of maybe what it's trying to do, what it's trying to accomplish in terms of looking at Lovecraft and his works. I guess a slight addendum to this fun fact is to say that Lovecraft Country, just quote unquote Lovecraft Country, both words, is a term that kind of refers to the general setting of all of Lovecraft's works, which take place in New England. And so that's obviously something that is carried forward into Lovecraft Country, the book and the television show. So there you have it. All right, so we will revisit Lovecraft Country, the television show, in much more detail in just a little while. We'll have a lot to talk about. It's a very interesting show. A little spooky at times, and very topical and hard hitting at other times. So a lot to get into. But for now, let's get into some news. Let's start with kind of the latest in terms of release date delays, that sort of thing, and really not a whole lot on this front. Just a couple quick announcements to make. Ghostbusters Afterlife had already been moved to 2021, but it's been moved again within the calendar year, so it's now set for June 11th of 2021, which kind of fun. It makes it, I forget the exact anniversary in terms of years, but it's going to be the same weekend that the first Ghostbusters film debuted in 1984. So do the math on that. What is that? Is that 36 years? Did I do that right? Seems right in my head. So 36 years to the weekend, it will be debuting the I guess fourth film in the Ghostbusters franchise. Though I think this one is maybe ignoring the all women Ghostbusters. I think, I don't know. We'll see. So anyway, that's that. And then Candyman, in terms of Halloween spooky film, something we should have experienced. I think this past August, if I'm not mistaken. Or September, somewhere around there. I got it completely wrong. It was originally set for June and then October of this year. Now it's been set for next August. So this is the Candyman sequel / reboot. I'm not exactly sure what their angle is with it, but August 27th, 2021 will be its new date. And this is something that is also, I think, produced by Jordan Peele, being co-written, I think, by Jordan Peele, and then directed by Nia DaCosta, who's set to do Captain Marvel 2 for Marvel Studios, as we talked about probably a few episodes back. So yeah, those are a couple films that we'll hopefully be looking forward to seeing in theaters, knock on wood, in 2021. June 2021 on, hopefully we'll be able to safely step foot into theaters, but
hopefully. Fingers crossed. That's right. All right, so moving into some of the other news. A lot of news on this episode, fewer trailers. In fact, only one trailer, which we'll get to shortly. So brace yourself for some news. First piece of news: Power Rangers. We're getting some more Power Rangers, and no, I don't mean they're just taking some old Japanese show and turning it into an American show with some added footage. It sounds like Hasbro's going all in on like a multimedia Power Rangers project, which I think is unrelated again to the most recent attempt that they did at this. I think it was just called Power Rangers. It was the one with Elizabeth Banks. Visiting Krispy Kreme a lot, as I recall. Just love those donuts. They're just so good. When you get them hot and fresh, they're just so good. So Hasbro has this kind of subsidiary company called Entertainment One, who's I think now responsible for all of their film, television, media projects and stuff like that. So I think the plan is to create a connected film and television universe. So one film to start, and then maybe multiple television projects either spinning off of that or connected to that in some fashion. Maybe we'll get a badass like White Ranger solo show, and then he'll come in for the sequel or some dope shit like that. Or he'll be the Green Ranger for a time, and he'll play his dope little his dagger flute. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Some cool shit like that. But so yeah, that's kind of more or less it. We do have some creators announced for this. So the guy that's basically running the show in terms of all the projects apparently is Jonathan Entwistle, who's worked on Netflix series I Am Not Okay With This and It's the End of the Fucking World. Okay. This might be a darker Power Rangers, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what Hasbro's angle is going for. I feel like that reboot they had kind of like towed the line of being a little bit more adult. Not like obviously, but it was still It was not like the the TV show, like the kids' TV show was. So
those fan made ones online though are real dark.
Yeah, that's true.
I think one of them's made by didn't the guy from Castlevania make one?
That sounds familiar. Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, like Adi Shankar, I think maybe. I think I feel like I know what you're talking about. I don't know if I actually watched it, but I think I know what you're talking about. Maybe, yeah. I mean, maybe it's a darker angle. Maybe it's a more adult angle. I really don't know. I mean, I don't think you should really get super dark with Power Rangers. It seems like kind of not really fitting the vibe of what the franchise kind of is. But like, sure,
they're modeling it after DC. Model it after DC.
Yeah, that's the perfect model. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you just copy
Superman
that?
breaks a man's neck, so can a Power Ranger. Yeah, I feel like why not?
I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that front. But I think one slight thing that was recently announced, even past that announcement that hey, we're doing this thing, is the writer on the film. The film is going to be Brian Edward Hill, who I think most recently has worked on Titans, the DC there's DC Universe streaming service, Titans. He's worked on that, and he's written a lot of comic books for Marvel, DC, and stuff like that. So probably a pretty good fit for a Power Rangers vibe, I would think. But I don't really know anything that he's done. But anyway, I guess the bottom line is, hey, it's happening. Woo, maybe. Any other thoughts on Power Rangers?
I have no thoughts on Power Rangers whatsoever.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, next up, Willow, the cult classic. You ever seen Willow, the cult classic?
I have not seen Willow. I've heard a lot about Willow, though.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it either. Actually, I think I bought it on Blu-ray a while back when I think they kind of did like a remastered update for Blu-ray, and I ended up buying it. I think it's probably on Disney Plus now, the original movie, which I think it was released 80s sometime. I'm not sure of the exact year.
1988, May 20th, 1988.
Okay, so yeah, it's Warwick Davis, Val Kilmer. He's basically, it's like a fantasy kind of story, directed by Ron Howard too. So just all sorts of connections there. But yeah, it kind of developed into this cult classic, and I think people have been kind of clamoring for a continuation for years. And the news that we're talking about now is that continuation is finally happening in the form of a Disney Plus sequel series, which is to take place.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say it's going to take place just, I guess, a few years after the events of the original. But what were you looking at? What's catching your eye?
So George Lucas produced it, and it was written by Bob Dolman. From a story by Lucas. Lucas actually wrote the story, and then
yes. So there's all sorts of Star Wars connections, there in terms of George Lucas, Warwick Davis, and Ron Howard with Solo. I guess a little bit later, obviously, but yeah. So I've heard it's like people legitimately love this film, and I've just never watched it. So maybe this is the inspiration that we need to revisit this, perhaps. But hey, it's fun, revive an '80s property that's beloved, and do something new and kind of add on to it. I feel like there's a lot of potential here. So I'm excited about that. In terms of the creatives on this one, John M. Chu, who directed Crazy Rich Asians, is going to be directing the pilot, and showrunners are going to be Jonathan Kasdan, who worked on Solo. He's the son of Lawrence Kasdan, who co-wrote Solo with him and wrote The Empire Strikes Back. And Wendy Miracle, who I can't remember. She's the current. I think she was a showrunner on Arrow for a time, post Guggenheim era, and pre whoever is working on it. Well, I guess it's over now. Whoever worked on maybe the last couple seasons. I don't think she finished it. So anyway, that's what's going on the Willow front. I mean, it's pretty neat. I'd say it seems pretty cool, especially for people that grew up with this movie or and kind of cherish it as a cult classic. So yeah, very cool. Real sad news. Not to really change tones from an uplifting, cool cult classic sequel to this just absolute hard-hitting, devastating news. The Fast and Furious franchise is coming to an end.
That's nuts.
Brings a tear to my eye, obviously. to see this franchise, this beloved franchise that has gone on for arguably 5 or 6 movies too long, just to see it get stretched out for another 2 films is just devastating. All right, I'll drop the pretense at this point. F9, the 9th film, is coming out next year sometime. Whenever it got bumped to, I already forget because everything gets delayed at this point. But the word on the street is Universal is saying, all right, you know, nine's not enough. And in fact, 10's not enough. 10 would be a weird number to end on. Why would we end on 10? Let's end on 11. Perfect. We nailed it. So we're going to get 2 more films after F9. So F10, F11, whatever the hell they end up calling these things. God knows they'll come up with some dumb fucking titles just to really, really draw them into the franchise. And both films are going to be directed by Justin Lin, who worked on F9. I think he's directed like 4 or 5 of these fucking things. So I can't remember which ones. There's so many of them. I really just can't even keep track at this point. But hey, you know, good on Universal for turning a street racing movie into a superhero franchise. It's honestly impressive in some ways. So I can't really begrudge them too much for it, right? You know, so
one of them was going to be in space, right?
Well, there's rumors that F9 might even take them to the space, which begs the question: what the fuck are F10 and F11 going to cover? I mean, we getting aliens, we getting like light speed travel. Like, where are we going from here? Where are we going? We got to know. I mean, at some point they got to stop using cars and start using space shuttles and shit. So, or they'll just drive their cars into space. That's it. Load it up with a rocket engine and send that bitch into space. Perfect.
Oh, Jesus, I can see it.
I mean, fuck it. We'll see it. We'll probably cover it. So
I see The Rock. You know what I see? I see The Rock climbing up you got the space shuttle launching, or the spaceship's launching into space, right? And I see The Rock holding on to a rocket on the side of the rocket while it's launching. Yeah. And he's just climbing up the top of the rocket.
Yeah, well, and I think to punctuate that sequence, it actually does break the atmosphere and go into space with The Rock still hanging on by his arms, and his, you can see his biceps just really, really. I mean, he's so tough, he's so strong, he's holding on for dear life, and he's actually in outer space, and there's a deliberate shot of him holding his breath, like, so that he can make it while he's in space. So and he's going to do it. He's going to punch his way through something, and make it onto some ship, and he'll exhale once he gets on board. He'll punch someone, and then he'll have a one-liner.
Take what he needs from the spaceship, and for some takes the lunar lander and re-enters the atmosphere, busts through the side of the shuttle, and re-enters the atmosphere with the lunar lander.
Nailed it. Man,
we should write F11.
Yeah, call us Universal. Call us. All right, shall we move on?
Yes.
All right.
We shall move on.
We shall move on to our one and only trailer for the episode. And it is for an upcoming Walt Disney Animation Studios film called Raya and the Last Dragon. Got an official teaser trailer for it. A little bit of a mea culpa here. I'm pretty sure I've called this film Raya and the Last Dragon for the entirety of its existence. So I guess I didn't know how to pronounce Raya. So there you have it. But it is, kind of a fantasy setting, dragons and stuff like that. Lead character Raya is being voiced by Kelly Marie Tran. And Awkwafina, your girl Awkwafina is in the cast, playing the titular Last Dragon, Sisu, which maybe I botched the pronunciation of that as well. We'll find out in time. But what'd you think about the teaser trailer?
So I thought it looked absolutely fantastic. I actually got some Ghibli vibes from it. Okay. It just, I don't know why, but I did. And it just looks pretty spectacular. I couldn't be more excited about this one.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I like the animation. I like the world design, character design. This is it's a teaser where most of it seems to be kind of like one big set piece or one scene, really. So I feel like we're kind of just barely scratching the surface of maybe like how expansive this movie could be, but I just really like the design and the vibe of it, and it seems like a cool setting and cast. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Disney Animation has done great work of late. I guess the Frozens, the Wreck-It Ralphs,
Moana.
Moana was great. Yeah, of course, Moana was great. So the 3D animation films that they've worked on have really been, I think for the most part, top notch. So I'm really not expecting any different from this one. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. This is set for a theatrical debut, March 2021. Again, maybe knock on wood, March is okay for sitting and watching things in a theater. That would be great. But not banking on anything just yet. But a man can dream, can he not?
A man can dream.
All right. Should we move on to the greatest piece of news?
I
don't know. These next two pieces of news, honestly, I can't decide which one I like more. All right, we're going to start with the announcement that Zack Snyder is not content to... I guess he is content to make Justice League the worst possible version of that film, because he has had the bright idea... I have all the pieces I need. I filmed everything that I want. I can make the movie that I want. Oh, but I want to reshoot everything and spend $100 million to do it. Oh, and I want to bring in Jared Leto to reprise his role as the Joker, because that's a good idea. So that's the news. Leto is back. You thought he was gone. You thought once they put Jaquan in his own movie and said, Jared, enough is enough. We don't need you anymore. That would be it for him. But he's getting the last laugh, as the Hollywood Reporter says. So coming back for additional scenes for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and oh boy, is this going to be a fucking goddamn shit show. I mean. Not that we needed this to tell us that. I mean, the trailer honestly kind of spoke for itself, I would say.
Oh, my God.
But
so not only is it going to be a 4-hour Justice League, it's going to be a 4-hour Justice League with fucking Jared Leto Joker?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
That's correct. And I honestly can't remember. It's been a little while. I guess it's probably been since theaters since I've seen the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League. But did that have Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor in it or not? I can't remember. I really don't remember or not. Do you? I don't know why I'm asking you. Why would you remember that? Why would you remember such a detail?
I lock these films in like the deepest parts of my mind. I know
I'm
that at one point the end of the movie
was
him laughing and telling him that the aliens were coming or something.
I think that was the end of BVS, but that's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, is there a continuation of that in Justice League at all? I really don't remember. But I just kind of feel like Zack Snyder's totally going to put Jesse Eisenberg in this shit too, if he hasn't already. You know what I mean?
I feel like it should have been a continuation of it.
You know what? He was in it. He was in the post credits. He was talking to Deathstroke, and nothing came of that. And that was his involvement in the film. So if that was a Joss Whedon, I don't know if that was a Joss Whedon shot, or I don't know if that was a Zack Snyder take, but you bet your bottom dollar Jesse Eisenberg and Jared Leto are going to be in this movie at some point, and they're both going to ruin it to the best of their capabilities. And leave it to the mastermind, Zack Snyder, the only man who knows how to single-handedly bring down the entirety of the DC universe. So
in one swoop. Oh man! And he gets to do it again.
Oh boy!
I guess Joss Whedon did it the first time, but he did it on the back of.
Yeah, I mean, could Joss have salvaged it? I mean, I guess that's always going to be the question, and I feel like this will provide probably a fairly definitive answer. But
oh my gosh,
yeah.
Well, that's happening.
That's happening, and what else is happening? This other piece of news, just another devastating piece of news. Everyone's favorite streaming service, Quibi, has unfortunately met its demise. Its untimely early demise. Who could have seen this coming? Quibi has gone through $2 billion of startup capital and is set to shut down very soon. I don't know if we have an official date on when they're pulling the plug, but it's going to be happening soon. Quibi was a massive failure, again, to the surprise of
No one.
Some people, I guess. I mean, some. I guess the only people that are probably surprised by this are the people that like the investors and the people that like started it and like, huh? What? You mean this terrible idea was terrible and was going to fail? What?
Jeez. $2 billion down the tubes.
Yeah. You could have used that on like anything else, literally anything else, and it probably would have been better. I was going to give you some sort of tangible example, like, like PPE or something like that, but like, no, literally anything would have been better.
Oh, goodness. Well, that was a thing. So
it was definitely a thing. It 2020, it has come and gone in less than one full calendar year. Yeah,
$20 billion in less than 1 year. Oh my goodness.
$2 billion, not 20. Let's be fair to them.
All right, $2 billion. All right.
That's still a lot of money. What would you do with $2 billion? Just ask yourself that question.
I would not do Quibi.
You would not do Quibi.
I would have never thought to do Quibi.
Yeah. So, in fairness, I think Quibi, obviously the pandemic probably threw a huge wrench into a thing that was kind of predicated in the idea that, like, you'll watch this on the subway when you're going to work, and people stopped going to work for months because they weren't traveling. So, obviously, that was probably a pretty big hurdle to clear. But I also think this was kind of doomed. I think this was doomed to fail regardless. It's just the pandemic sped up the time that it
at some point they should have adapted. We're going to change our gimmick. We're going to shift gears, change our gimmick, and produce shows on a streaming platform or something where you're not locked into your phone since nobody's traveling right now. At some point, just change gears. And I mean, I don't know. The platform. I mean, pricing was bad. The content, at least at the outset, was really, really bad. And, the whole idea of you're locked to your phone and you have the option to watch 20% of the image in a portrait mode, or you can just turn your phone sideways. It's like, why would you even give that option? Like, you clearly just misunderstand, like, what this is. And it's like, I think people probably just kind of spoke and said, I'll just watch YouTube. Yeah, that's fine. Or I'll watch Netflix on my phone, and just turn my phone on the side. Like, I'll be fine. I don't need to pay more money for this shit. So I would say rest in peace, but honestly, bye. You know what I mean? Like, see ya. Truly don't care. Actually, I think it's quite funny. It's actually hilarious. Okay. We got a couple. The next pieces of news are kind of first looks of certain things, and the first of those first looks is a first look at Tom Holland himself as Nathan Drake in the upcoming Uncharted film, which by God has started filming after losing like 16 directors. Nice.
So we got to look at him. He is wearing, the Nathan Drake outfit, it looks like, for the most part. He's got the Francis Drake ring on the necklace around him, and he's on some sort of, building where he's presumably traversing and exploring and that sort of thing. But what do you think about the look?
I think it looks like Nathan Drake. I think he looks pretty good.
It's very visibly, obviously Nathan Drake. For anyone familiar with the Uncharted, video games, it's like, yep. Certainly a younger version of him than we saw in the games, but well, I guess we did see a young Drake in a couple of those games and like flashback type sequences. But yeah, I gotta say, I don't really know that Tom Holland would have been my first choice for this character, but if they're doing this as like a young Drake, I mean, the looks, honestly, looks good. Purely in terms of costume design, it looks good. Is the movie going to be any good? Probably the bigger question, and probably a less favorable answer, but yeah, I gotta say, I do expect this to be a train wreck, to be honest, and not a good train wreck like the beginning of Uncharted 2, a bad train wreck in the sense that people are dying because, oh my God, a train is, wrecking, and that's not supposed to happen. So yeah, I think it looks good. This is directed by Ruben Fleischer, who did Venom most recently, so that obviously bodes well. And it's still got Marky Mark of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch playing Sully, which he posted a video on, I think, Instagram or Twitter or something like that, showing off a mustache. And I I have a very, very strong suspicion that I'm going to hate Mark Wahlberg as Sully because it seems like a really, really bad casting for that particular role, just from my familiarity with the video games. But as with all things, we will wait and see. But
give me a trailer.
Do you have any? Yeah, I think that's going to be a real litmus test of. Oh yeah, this is another.
I
video
think you'll
game movie
know
as expected,
immediately with the trailer. I don't think this will be. I don't think it'll be one of those situations where the trailer could be misleading.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a see what you get kind of deal.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. And my bold prediction as far as that trailer, whenever it does arrive, is that as soon as Mark Wahlberg speaks, you'll know if it's bad or not. You'll know. You'll know. Mark my words.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. All right. The other first look that we got was courtesy of the CW, your favorite network, but of course, who's debuted a couple images of a redesigned Batsuit for the new Batwoman, Javicia Leslie, who is taking over from Ruby Rose for the second season moving forward. And she's getting her own spiffy Batsuit to match, which, to be honest, is pretty similar to the Ruby Rose Batsuit. I know you didn't watch Batwoman season 1. I'm not, but I think you probably at least saw pictures of her in costume. So for sake of comparison, like this is pretty similar. The material on the suit's a little bit different. The texturing is a little bit different. It's got a little bit more red and like the gauntlets and the belt. And the hair, I think, is probably one of the most noticeable differences here. Is that she's no longer adorning the bright red, obviously fake wig that was attached to the cowl for the Ruby Rose variation of the costume. But this one still does have it's a wig, but it looks, it's clearly a wig modeled after a black woman's hair, and it's kind of got the tips that are dyed red, so it's not red throughout. It's just kind of the tips that are red. But I think it looks pretty good. I'm not sold on the whole recasting angle that they're taking with this show and what this character is supposed to be. But like, obviously they're making the best out of bad circumstances of their lead actor bailing on the show and kind of figuring out, okay, well, how the fuck do we move forward? So purely in terms of costume design, I got to say it looks pretty good. I'm a fan of how this looks, which again is to say nothing of the quality of the show itself. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think just from this picture, or two pictures, I guess you get two pictures, right?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's like a side profile and then more like a front-facing profile.
I think it looks really good.
Yeah,
I mean the costume looks good, but I mean I'm looking at pictures of Ruby Rose with the red wig, and I mean just seeing it like in action with like the stills, it doesn't look very good.
Yeah. I mean, it's not intended to be her real hair. Like, it's not, it's part of the costume is the red wig, but it
okay.
It looked,
right. Well,
but it still looked kind of bad. Like, I think in the comics, like, it's clearly, it's fake. It's still, again, part of the cowl. Like, that's accurate, but it looks natural still, and it looks kind of cool. Whereas I think with the Ruby Rose costume, it just kind of looked off. Something like a little off, I think, overall.
This looks like it's not part of the cowl. Is it supposed to be part of the cowl with her?
I think it is. Yeah, I think there was like someone posted on Instagram or something like that where she clearly has different hair
in the show
outside of the bat suit. So yeah, but it's clearly playing on the idea that now it's a black woman that is taking on the Batwoman. I don't
understand
role.
why. I don't understand
she's
why
got hair to match. So
I don't understand why you have to have wig hair on your cowl. I don't understand why you just can't.
I don't know. I mean, I guess at least in the case of Ruby Rose, it was kind of part of the secret identity because she had short hair in the show. So it's kind of just like, okay, well, she's got long flowing red hair. Like, it's not.
Who the fuck is that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not this short haired woman. Like that would be insane. There's no way there's a wig on that suit. But I think it's just way of masking her identity. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either,
right,
but I think that looks okay. I think she looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. So, Maybe I'll get around to watching Batwoman Season 1 at some point. I haven't watched the CW show in probably about 2 months, but I'm still working on it, man. I'm still working on it. I got a checklist I'm running through. Don't you worry about it.
CW shows.
Don't you worry
Holy
about
shit,
it.
I can't believe they're still a thing.
They're still going. Still going. All right, let's conclude our news segment with, obviously, I think the most exciting news that's broke this week, and that is your boy Poe Dameron, Oscar Isaac himself, is set to headline one of the newest Disney Plus Marvel television shows, and that is Moon Knight. He's playing the role of Mark Spector, a.k.a. Moon Knight, which, I mean, that's fucking huge. That's a big get. I mean, Oscar Isaac is a serious fucking actor. He's
Oscar
great,
Isaac is a fucking badass.
He's a badass, and he felt so disillusioned, like in the interviews after The Rise of Skywalker, that I just figured he's kind of at the point in his career where he's probably like keen to do like, more artsy type things. I mean, granted, he's doing Dune, which is obviously a huge budgeted film, but like, something directed by Denis Villeneuve is kind of different than a Star Wars movie, I would say. But no, here he is, ready to take on the title role in a TV show of all things, which will probably.
So Moon Knight is going to be a television show.
It is, yeah. It's a live action TV show. I would imagine. I think Kevin Feige's master plan for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward is that the line between movies and Disney Plus shows is very, very thin, in the sense that I think characters will go back and forth between them as their contract negotiations will allow them to. And the quality, they'll be pumping money into these things, and they'll probably be shorter, 6, 4, 8 episode type things overall. But I just think, if you're casting Oscar Isaac for this, then you can probably in a few years' time expect him to see, I think you can expect to see him popping up in some movies, I think, sometime down the line. So I think it's awesome. I mean, it doesn't even matter what the character is, just like Oscar Isaac and a Marvel thing sounds great. We don't have to talk about Apocalypse. It's in the past. It's in the past, guys. He was buried in so much makeup, you honestly couldn't even tell anyway. But yeah, I think it's really, really awesome. Do you know anything about Moon Knight, the character?
I think he gets his powers from like an Egyptian god or something, right?
Yeah, basically. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. He's the conduit for the Egyptian moon god Khonshu. So I think a lot of his storylines, he has like multiple identities. He's a mercenary, superhuman powers through the Egyptian god. I think a lot of runs have kind of focused on the different identities that he's had, and people kind of think he's crazy and like don't really believe that like he has actual powers, but spoiler alert, he does. So I would be curious to see if they'll play with that, and maybe once he kind of has a firm sense of his identity or something like that, then maybe that's when he kind of transitions into playing with the big boys, the Avengers and stuff like that, maybe. So I don't know, very, very
that sounds
cool.
really cool.
So I'm super excited about that. All the Disney Plus stuff on the Marvel end of things, I'm just very, very stoked about. But yeah, I think it's very, very
fucking
cool.
Oscar
all around,
Isaac,
so.
dude.
Fucking Oscar Isaac, exactly. Poe Dameron.
Man.
Are you ready to talk about Lovecraft Country now?
Let's do it, dude. Let's talk about Lovecraft Country. We can do that.
All right. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that's why we're here. I think that's what we're here to do. So Lovecraft Country is an HBO original series developed by Misha Green, produced by Jordan Peele, based off of the 2016 novel Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff. Stars Journey Smollett, Jonathan Majors, Anjanou Ellis, Courtney B. Vance, Wunmi Mosaku, Abby Lee, Jamie Chung, Jada Harris, and Michael K. Williams. And it's about a young black man who embarks on a road trip with his friend and his uncle across 1950s Jim Crow America in search of his missing father. It takes a few twists and turns from that point on. Don't get me wrong, but that's certainly the setup. So this is it's a 10-episode show. It's been airing since August. I think the finale was probably over a week ago at this point. We're probably slightly late to the party in terms of when it wrapped up, but again, it feels appropriate for a little spooky episode for our listeners. So it's a horror drama, I think is kind of what Wikipedia classifies it as. And, it covers a lot. It covers a lot in 10 episodes for sure. So let me kick it over to you and ask you kind of just for your overall take on the show. What did you think about Lovecraft Country?
So, with Lovecraft Country, I liked it. Sorry, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I like how, depending on the episode, the genre feels like it changes.
Yes.
It does. It covers. It's almost like I don't know. I don't know what it's like. But there's every episode almost has a unique genre to it. Like there's one episode it feels like an adventure Indiana Jones-esque episode, which is cool, or the Goonies or something like that. You have other episodes that are straight up horror, which is cool. You have sci-fi adventures, which is cool. And then you have fantasy episodes, which is cool. So it's kind of like taking, I don't know, it's kind of playing fast and loose with the genres in each episode, which is pretty neat. Race is a through line throughout the series. Sometimes I think it does so in really powerful, interesting ways. In some ways, I didn't get a whole lot from it. So that's to say some things seem more meaningful and more pungent than other things, I should say. So, but it is a through line throughout the entire series, and for a strong reason. I mean, it's Jim Crow America looks like a really shitty place to fucking be. Well,
I think anyone that lived in that era can attest to the fact that yes, indeed, it was a terrible time to live. So yeah.
Yeah. So other than that, though, I think that the technical aspects of the show, I think they're on point. I think that I think it's well shot. I think it's very, very. If you don't like anything else about the show, the story is incredibly creative. The techniques to make the show are incredibly creative. Everything about it is a creative tour de force. It is very, very...
We're back to the tour de force. We're back to it. Took us one episode and we're already back to it.
It's a very creative show. I think certain episodes really shine and others kind of falter a little bit. I don't think it's a consistent experience. I think that the story is kind of so I didn't watch it like 1 week. Sometimes I'd have to watch 2 episodes because I missed the previous week's episode. And I found it in certain points kind of hard to follow because I skipped a couple weeks of episodes. I don't know if I'm interested to hear your position on it because you pretty much grinded it out. So I'm interested to see if it's a little bit of a tighter experience or easier to follow. Seeing it in quick succession. But like I said, I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. And I think it's technically well made. My biggest gripe would be the consistency in what you're getting, and the conciseness between the overarching thing. It just, like I said, some of it seemed kind of, I don't know, some of it was just kind of hard to follow for me. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good experience. I mean, I did enjoy it. I'd be watching season 2. So, what'd you think?
Yeah, I would say that, like you, I liked it. I didn't love it. I think it had potential to be a bit more than kind of what it was, and I think kind of answer your question in terms of, I as I mentioned, I did watch at least the back half of it in pretty quick succession, probably over the course of 3-4 days. I watched, I would say, at least 5, maybe 6 episodes, somewhere around there. And I think that the consistency is just tied into this idea that each episode kind of is a self-contained take on a certain genre. And so some of those takes on those genres are like exceptional, like done just exceptionally well, really, really interesting, really compelling for this or that. And like the variety is honestly impressive. The variety that they have on display in terms of the genres that it really hits on is astonishing. And Like some of those are just magnificent, just takes on those. And some are not, I don't think anything in here is bad, more or less. It's just some are obviously inherently more interesting than others. But I think more than that, just some are just done better than others. And so it really, some of it works really well and some of it just doesn't work that well. And so, it's got some really high highs. And I don't think, again, the lows are like so low that it like really, really detracts, and makes the show bad or anything like that. But it holds it back at a bare minimum. It really does hold it back from kind of ascending into that top tier type of television show that I think it was kind of on the cusp of, and occasionally is overall. So yeah, it sounds honestly like we're very much on the same page. I think because I think in spoilers I'll be curious to see if like we agree of this certain genre was done really well or this genre was done less well. Like I'll be curious to see if we agree on that. And maybe it just ends up being personal preference on that sort of thing. But I did like it, to kind of circle back to that. I don't know. I wanted it to be more, and I wanted to like it more, I think, overall. But to not dwell on the things that I didn't like, I do think that some of the stuff is just excellent. I think the cast, for one, is really good. Journey Smollett, Jonathan Majors particularly, kind of the top two characters in this just really, really do a lot with their characters. And I think really even some of the characters that I think at the outset seem like they're going to be bit players kind of take on the life of their own, due to the nature of kind of how the episodes work where, one episode is maybe more focused on a character than and the next one is focused on a different character. Like they kind of go to some really good lengths within some of those episodes to develop kind of some of the major or the minor characters rather. And I think they do a really, really excellent and compelling job taking even the smaller characters and giving them a lot of depth. And I think that the performances across the board are a big part of why those characters kind of click as much. These are complicated characters and characters who do fucked up things, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So yeah, it's sometimes it's hard to watch because it's hard to root for some of these characters due to kind of what we get exposed to throughout the course of the show. But I think major props are owed to I think a lot of the performers in this show. And I love seeing Courtney B. Vance and things, so he's always appreciated here. Michael K. Williams is a pretty consistent performer who I think does great work here too. So and Anjanou Ellis, who plays Hippolyta, I've never seen her in anything as far as I can recall. Another, a shining example of taking a character that kind of starts as just being like, okay, and then like goes to some serious lengths and depths that did not see coming for sure. So huge props to the cast. I think the production design of the show was really interesting. I think, for the most part, it's done really well. The CG is spotty here and there. It depicts a lot of kind of crazy, outworldly, Lovecraftian type things. And, on a TV budget, even for HBO, where I'm sure they're pumping Game of Thrones type numbers, or at least close to that into something like this, sometimes you can kind of see the limitations. But for the most part, I think it all really works well. There's a lot of blood, blood and guts in this.
Fucking
the themes.
I talked about race, and I don't know why it didn't immediately come to hand, but fucking the like empowering women. That's right up there with race as far as a consistent.
Yes. It's a through line.
Through line.
I don't think it's a coincidence that the showrunner on this is a black woman. I think that is very apparent in terms of what the show strives for, and I think that's great. I think it adds a really interesting perspective because it is kind of interesting to me. The 2016 book is written by a white man, so it's kind of just like how authentic can that really be? And I've heard the book is good, and I've heard it's really enjoyable, and obviously there's a reason that people looked at it and said, let's turn this into a TV show. Like, there's some really interesting ideas here. But I think, from what I understand, the show diverges from the books in certain respects, and I feel like it probably doubles down on a lot of those aspects that, like, only someone that is a person of color could really kind of understand. And that's not to say that, like, you know, this is someone that lived through 1950s Jim Crow America, but, like, you know, some of those experiences are not dissimilar to current modern day experiences. We live in a different society where expectations are obviously quite different, and segregation is not as pronounced, or at least, you know, it's not basically legally allowed like it used to be.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, it still trickles in to daily life, and so certainly the experiences of someone that is a woman of color, like that provides a very interesting context for, let's talk about race in America, how it used to be, maybe tackling in a way that makes it still topical for things that are happening right now. And also let's splice in some horror, some Lovecraftian shit, splice in some blood, and, you know, and some violence, and you know, some real kind of out there type things. It all makes for a very, very interesting package. But I think the themes, particularly, to kind of pull on that thread, since you just mentioned it, I think that's where the show kind of hits the mark the best. I think overall is when it really, really dives into the racial dynamics of society in 1950s. And, you know, we have a basically almost all black cast. I mean, I guess the sort of villain of the show is a white woman, right? You know, and that's kind of really your only, and I guess Jamie Chung is in it. So we still have another person of color who's not a black woman. She's a Korean woman. So it's, you know, a little different. But, you know, still, you kind of get this lens on everything in this show that is very unique, and it creates like this really, really interesting and often hard-hitting commentary on what it's like to be black in America, whether it's 1950s or 2020. So I really think that was great, and I think, yeah, certainly the women in this show are really they're awesome. I mean, you know, in terms of just the strength of their characters, in terms of where they go, and how empowered, to use your word there as well, they are. I think it, you know, for some characters that represents something very different than for another character. And, you know, so for good or for bad, I guess I'll say without spoiling anything for how these characters go, but it's really, really fascinating to kind of watch it all unfold. Often horrifying at times and disturbing at times, but sometimes just interesting and compelling and awe-inspiring at other times. So it's a wide-ranging show that deals with, as we've talked about, so many genres and so many different ideas and themes and stuff like that like it kind of sometimes collapses under the weight of trying to do so fucking much at once. But I do kind of respect the audacity to just go for it so much with a lot of it. Like, it really just goes
like
for
when
it.
When you describe it, when you say that you've got a show that tries to tackle so many different genres and so many different thematical elements and so many just there's a lot there. You know, the first thing that probably comes to mind is it's probably a muddled mess, and it is not a muddled mess. It's just like you say, it probably falters a little bit under its own weight. But yeah, hats off to the people that put the show together and made it, because I mean, it's, like I said, I think it's a really well done show. And like you said, you know, it has incredibly high highs, but those high highs create shadows. You know what I mean? Like you can have a decent episode, but when the episode before it was just outstanding, it just sets the bar that much higher. You know what I mean? So if you're not consistent, you're in the shadow of the previous episode.
Yeah.
But one thing that is consistent is no episode feels like filler. You know, it's not like you get just a really, really lame episode. It's just some episodes I think are inherently more interesting or better done than others, I think. So
yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. You know, in terms of like, what's the solution to making it better? It's like, it's not that like it needed to be shorter. Like, you know, I really don't think like length of the show was necessarily an issue.
No,
I mean, I really honestly just think some things are more interesting than others, and as a result, they were probably more interesting to the people making it, and it kind of showed. I mean, I do think like kind of the big overarching plot of it is one of the less interesting things about it. You know, I think the moment to moment
Right.
things that happen are kind of more fascinating and more interesting for the characters, more interesting as a study of the themes that we've talked about. Whereas, this character is trying to do this, but these characters are trying to stop that character from doing that. Like, fine, but like it's just very plot heavy type things. And
I do think that's a good way to explain it though. Like the main, it's not that I don't personally find that the main arc is not very fascinating. I think it's very fascinating. It is. It's just, I think how you get to point A to point B is very convoluted.
I think what I found with it is they weren't concerned about how they got from point A to point B. They just wanted to get there. And I found that a lot of times this show was very abrupt in how it got from point A to point B. It's like we really don't give a shit. Like we have, we know what places we want to hit. We're just going to jump. And whether that's a time jump literally, or if it's like, just we want this thing to happen, so this person's just going to do this thing, and like, so be it. I kind of felt like the writing it was a little lackluster there in the sense that like they weren't really sure how to get the broad strokes of the plot across, so they kind of
just fucking did it.
They just did it and said, we'll be fine. People be, they'll be distracted by the other stuff in this that like we're really probing and adding a lot of depth to. And like it didn't bother me really. It was just kind of just like, oh, I guess that's happening now, or oh, I guess that just happened. And so it happened enough times throughout the show that it really, really felt like, not that they necessarily needed to pad it out, but it just sometimes didn't feel earned or justified or really kind of make a lot of logical sense. It was really just like, let's just take a leap and go for it at this point. It's like, okay, fine, I guess. I'm here for the ride, but I don't know.
And to somebody that watched the show on a week-to-week or mostly week-to-week basis, it made it, I think that's probably what made it difficult to, like, follow the plot beats. You know what I mean? Follow the beats of the show.
No,
I think if you're gonna do that, I think it might be more. I think it may have been better just to dump all the episodes out at once and let somebody grind it out. Now you obviously noticed it. I probably would have noticed it, but it probably would have been less detrimental to the entire plot of the show, because at certain points I'm like, what the fuck happened? I don't understand the importance of this or that,
Yeah, I would say even in a binge watching experience, some of the nitty gritty stuff of the plot just doesn't really add up. It's either we're talking about 50 names or this location and that location. It gets kind of convoluted at times in the sense that we're just like, who's what the fuck are they doing? Like right. that I think still exists even with watching the episodes in close succession. And I think the plotting, I don't know. I almost wonder if it's even hampered even more by watching it so closely because of just how it flows. Like certain episodes will just ignore certain characters existing for the entirety of their episode, and then the following episode will kind of like, oh, let's circle back around to this plot that we set up 2 episodes ago and close the loop on that.
It's kind of break.
If you're watching it week to week, maybe you're not really thinking about like, well, that just happened. I want to know what the fuck just happened there, not what's happening over here in this corner. So, I wonder if that. I think just maybe due to how they structured the show, like each watching experience is going to be somewhat imperfect in its own way. So, you might have had a different complaint about, just following the overall plotting. Whereas me, I was just like, yeah, I mean, that was still convoluted. Don't get me wrong, but I just felt like, I don't know. I what actually some of it reminded me of, that Stranger Things episode that focuses on 11 on her adventures and wherever the hell she is, and it's like a total like break from the action. Like that one, to be fair, that one is a really bad episode, and I think where this one breaks away from the action, it does it in the form of actually really, really good episodes. But it does really kind of it breaks up the flow of the overall thrust of the show, and so the pacing ends up kind of being awkward as a series overall. The pacing in the episodes, I think themselves are pretty good though. So
that's it.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of
pacing of the series. That's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what I was getting at. That's the perfect way to put it. The pacing of the series is off. That's
yeah. It's not quite right. I don't know if it's necessarily you needed to put episode.
I've never thought about pacing
here
of a series
or something like that, but
other than super long seasons, I always complain about, hey, I like shorter seasons,
filler. Yeah,
but I've never thought about I I don't know. I've never thought about the pacing of a series as a whole, like the structure of the episodes, and yeah, it may have benefited from more episodes. I don't know.
Maybe more episodes, or even just the ordering of the episodes could have played a difference, or just the editing. Some of the episodes are pretty self-contained, and maybe they didn't need to be. Maybe that kind of interrupted certain plot aspects. But I don't know. I mean, I think the bottom line is it's not a perfect show. It's one that I think hits the mark on a lot of things, and like I said, just it swings for the fences on so many things, and for some watching a lot of baseball lately, might as well just make a baseball analogy. Even the great hitters go up to the plate and they're striking out sometimes. You know what I mean? So it hits a few home runs, maybe hits a grand slam once in the game, but they're up there. Sometimes they're flying out, or they're unlucky and they hit a line out, to an outfielder, hard hit ball, and it's pretty good, but it just gets caught. It's not the best place for it. So, it's overall still really good though, So, I think that's probably all I have to say in terms of non-spoilers myself, as far as my brain can think right now. So, do you have anything else on non-spoilers? Are you ready to dive into recommendation?
We can dive into recommendations.
All right. So, in terms of recommendation, I'm not sure if I did it on the last episode, so I should probably reiterate what our rating scheme is. And to be fair, this one I think actually did. I can't remember. Actually, it's been so long. 2020 has been so weird that we just conflated our. Yes. All right. I am remembering right. So to reiterate our kind of rating scheme, which originally was a television only rating scheme, then turned into a film and television thing when we stopped feeling comfortable recommending people go watch things in theaters, mostly because it wasn't physically possible to do so. Our recommendation scale is 5-tiered. At the very top is very yes, which is, cream of the crop, best show ever type thing, followed by yes, dropping down to totally fine as the middle ground, then fine, and then at the very bottom, the worst show type thing is shithouse. So where do you stand on Lovecraft Country in terms of our beautiful rating scale?
So I would say I want to preface this recommendation by saying that this show is definitely not for everyone.
Yes, that's probably a good thing to call out. Yes, that is very much true.
This thing is a weird thing. It is a good thing overall. I think it's a good thing. But the last movie we covered was the Chicago 7. I happily bring that up in discussion. I happily recommend this to everyone. You know what I mean? I think it is for everyone. I would probe somebody to find out what their sentiments are to certain other movies before I'd recommend this one. This one is definitely not for everyone. With that being said, the content of the show, I think the thematic elements that it covers are great. I think it's well made. The pacing of the series it falters, it wavers. I think it causes some plotting problems, but overall, I think it's good. I'm going to give it a yes. I'm going to say it's a yes for me. I'm hoping that season 2, if there is a season 2, I hope it tries to refine what it's trying. If it doesn't change what it's doing to make it a more concise experience, I hope it at least refines it and finds out how to solve its plotting issues or its pacing issues. I think it's at the bottom end of a yes recommendation. I think it's a yes solely on what it was trying to do and the technical aspects of how it did it. But I think the pacing really caused some problems for me, which is keeping it from moving forward. So that's it's a yes. It's a bottom yes. Could have been the potential of a medium yes, just because some of the episodes were less awesome than other episodes. Like it wasn't a consistent, totally awesome experience. So I think it had the capacity to be a medium yes. I wanted it to be a very yes. Season 2 might be a very yes. But it is bottom yes for me.
Okay,
That was a lengthy response.
I'm also... No, that's quite all right. I'm also saying yes, to answer that particular question, in the sense that I think this show hits various peaks,
Yes.
but it also drops down to totally fine tier, I think, on several occasions. I don't really know necessarily like below that.
No,
but it's
I wouldn't
enough
say
that,
so. It's totally fine.
it has to kind of end up between those two, and so we give it the second highest kind of ranking in our scheme. It's good. It's occasionally great. I know I kind of found myself by the end enjoying the experience and glad that I went for it, but still leaving a bit wanting. The consistency is such a big thing that we keep harping on, but it's absolutely 100% true. It's just, if you asked me after certain episodes, I said that's one of the coolest things or the greatest things I've seen in a long time, and then you ask me after that, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that was fine, yeah, all right, and so it kind of sucks to have kind of both of those within a 10 episode span of the same show. Yes, I would say yes overall, and I will second the notion that, hey, this may not be a show for you regardless of how well it's done. It's bloody, it's gory, it's graphic. It hits on race relations, sexual violence at one point. There's a lot in this show that I think is challenging to an audience, and some of that is good, challenging in the way that like be introspective, think about some of these things, and some of it's just there to be visceral and kind of gross out type things that you may not like that sort of thing. It's a horror drama, so if you don't like horror at all, like you're already kind of starting in a position where maybe this isn't for me. I did watch it with Anna all the way through, and she does not do horror well, and she struggled with this at certain times, just in terms of visual, like imagery in it that was haunting and scary and stuff like that. And but I think she liked the other aspects of this show more than that, while still struggling with certain things here and there. So it's kind of an interesting experience. I like horror, you like horror, so we're kind of predisposed to this sort of thing, and this was kind of our shit. I think we expected this to be our shit, so we're really coming at this from the perspective of like, we were expecting to like this a lot,
right?
And we ended up liking it, I think, a lot. I don't think that's unfair to say, but while still having reservations, caveats.
Well, it wasn't quite what we were expecting either.
That's true too. I mean, it is very, very different than what I expected. Sometimes in good ways and sometimes in bad ways.
Right.
So,
which will lead us to
the
ebbs and flows. Yes, I say that frequently.
Lead us to the spoilers.
Yeah, which is going to lead me to the spoilers. We can go into spoilers because I want to segue. It wasn't what we expected into the spoilers.
So here we are, full spoilers for first season of Lovecraft Country. Where are you thinking of going right now?
Okay, so episode 1 is what I fully expected. Episode 1 was fucking bonkers, totally off the rails, fucking awesome episode. I was 125% blown off my rocker watching episode 1. Blew me away. Totally loved it. What'd you think about episode 1, the pilot?
Well, I to take a slight step back, I will answer your question. I will. I do this sometimes where I just like, that's a nice question. It's the politician's response of, it's a nice question. Let me talk about something else real quick. This is one of the few times I think I like to talk about things like in order and episode by episode when we do TV shows or like movies. Let's go plot beat by plot beat. This is one of the few times where I feel like it's almost justified because each episode is like its own fucking thing.
Yes.
Some of the plot carries over, but like honestly, I think we can probably go 1 to 2 to 3 to down the line. Some of these things will have more to say than others. And episode 1, to answer your question, is one of those episodes where I think we'll probably have more to say than other episodes because episode 1's incredible. I mean, the plot synopsis that I read off of, what the show is about, like that's episode 1 basically.
Right.
And then the show pivots to something completely different. Basically
shit.
by the end of episode 1 and going into episode 2. And episode 1 is kind of the show that I would have seen. I would have liked 10 episodes of that.
Yes.
I would have happily watched 10 episodes of that show. Not that plot needed to be dragged out for 10 episodes or anything like that, but just the vibe of that.
The vibe and where it ended. I was completely I was excited to see what happened next in the next episode. 10 episodes starting with episode 1 and continuing the vibes. I would have been that's what I expected.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best way to put it.
I mean, like they kind of pitched it as, the horrors of racism, in 1950s America juxtaposed with Lovecraftian Cthulhu-esque monsters. And like, that was it. That was what you got in episode 1 was, the sundown sequence was terrifying.
Yeah.
You could, the tension was so palpable in that first episode with these characters kind of just going on, like a road trip, like, to this small town in Massachusetts. And like, I mean, just the scene where they're getting followed by the car with like the rifles, they're getting shot at, for being black. It's like,
holy
fuck.
shit.
You know what I mean? And so that sequence is just very, very intense. And then you kind of get the cathartic ending with fucking Cthulhu-esque, well, not really Cthulhu-esque, but like Shoggoths, I think is what they're called, Stranger Things type monsters coming in and just tearing motherfuckers to pieces, like
and then that one dude turned into one.
Watch.
Yeah, that
one guy turned into one, right? Yeah, that was interesting. That whole first episode was just really, really compelling, because it hit both of those tones and themes and ideas just really, really well. Like it was such an interesting melding of things to happen, and it just did those so well. It made you so excited for the rest of the show. And as much as I liked, I think, most of the rest of the show, I'm not sure that there's a better episode than the first episode.
No, I'm glad
I think the pilot might be the best one in the show.
I think we're on the same
which is kind of shitty to say, right? I just think the premise of it was so good that it, ones that kind of diverted from that, like I still enjoyed it, but it just never hit the mark. I guess that's kind of what we expected, and that's kind of what we wanted. And then we got something different. It's like, well, this is cool, but that was cool.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's we're on the. I think we might be on the same page. So the first is such a high mark. I need to pull up the episode synopsises again.
Well, so moving on. If you
go ahead,
on that, I can move along. The second episode is they're in the lodge. They end up at the lodge by the end of episode 1, and now they're in the lodge with Titus Braithwaite. And there's a secret society of wizards and shit, and they're doing some magic. And Atticus is a descendant of the great Titus Braithwaite, and he's got magic in his blood or something like that. So we got to do rituals, and I don't know. I was already starting to get lost in this show. Like by episode 2, like really was a red flag for me. I think I didn't hate the episode, but I was just like, I don't want any. I don't want that. Like this isn't that interesting to me. It's just secret society, weird magic users, and I don't know. It was such a different change of pace from the first episode that I felt. I don't know. I just didn't like it a whole lot. I don't know how you felt about it, but
yeah. So is this the one that burns down the mansion?
Yeah. So yeah. From well, again, another thing that's worth saying is like when they ended up at the mansion at the end of like the first episode, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, so maybe we'll be at the mansion for like the rest of the season, and then by the end of episode 2, it's like, I guess it will not be at the mansion for the rest of the season. What the fuck is this show?
Yeah. So
yes,
season 2. Season 2 was the. Season 2 is almost like I would say.
Episode 2.
Episode 2, I'm sorry. Episode 2 is almost like Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't find it terribly interesting. Don't get me wrong, I like a good secret society. I appreciated what they were doing with setting up the bloodlines and just kind of, it's very info dumpy.
It was so fast-paced and exposition-heavy that, like, none of it really stuck, I don't think.
Exactly. It really, there's a lot going on here. But, it was what it was at the time. It was fine, and it ended up with the mansion burning down, and this was, coming off of episode 2, it was a significant dump. This was a totally fine episode, I would say. If we're going to rank each episode,
yes.
The first one was a very yes, and number 2 was
this
a
one's
totally fine.
I agree.
It's a exposition heavy episode. It happens real quick and snappy. There's a lot going on, and it ends in a exclamation point. But I mean, I didn't feel like I got a lot from it. But episode 3 is
episode 3 is almost kind of a reset. Oh, also, just slight note on episode 2. I got to say, rest in peace to George.
Yeah, George was awesome.
I feel like
I really enjoyed. George.
I think I said as much to Anna. I was just like, this show is at its best when Courtney B. Vance is in the episode, and he's in more than just the first 2 episodes as George, but particularly those first 2 episodes. I really liked him. I liked that performance. I liked that character, and I felt like it lost a step when that character kind of exited stage left. So episode 3 is, I think, going all in on horror in terms of genre. This is the haunted house episode,
with all the ghosts joining hands.
The ghosts joining hands at the end, right? You know, they're like the victims of the experiments from this fucked up doctor dude that's, you know, taking black people and.
Yeah, he's like a Nazi. He's like the Nazi scientist. What's that Nazi guy that experimented on twins and shit?
Sure. But
anyways, that Nazi doctor, I can't remember his name, but yeah, it's kind of like one of those deals. This was I didn't find this episode terribly awesome. I thought it was interesting because now on top of the secret society shit that we had going on, we also have a secret language to decipher, the language of Adam. And I thought that stuff was pretty cool. They start to stumble upon a book, and I don't know, I'm a sucker for that kind of mythos and stuff. So I found that the tail end of this episode was more interesting than like the ghost stuff that happened. But yeah, that's it. And the cops were pieces of shit, I think, in this one.
Yeah. That's true, for sure. I think I'm kind of somewhat with you and somewhat not with you on this particular episode. I think that I enjoyed. I think the lore stuff was handled much better in this episode because it was kind of. I think the lore stuff was not as info dumpy. It was more just kind of like seeded throughout, and I think that was better. I think that it worked better. It was more understandable. But I did actually enjoy the ghost aspect of it too. I think partially like. I just haven't watched like horror in a long time, and I was just like, ooh, spooky, like straight, you know, traditional horror tropes and ghosts and stuff like that. I'm like, I kind of forgot how fun this can be. You know, maybe that's a weird way of putting it, but like I do legitimately enjoy horror when it's done well. And this one was done well. It was pretty good.
It was creative.
Good, you know, kind of crack at it. So,
and admittedly, I actually was honed in on this, like I was more focused on this episode. I was more keen to focus on this episode, just because it was a better episode than episode 2.
Yeah, it was definitely an uptick from. I'd say it's a yes, you know, for still assigning rankings. I think it's not as good as episode 1, but certainly better than episode 2. But I think it feels like, all right, this show was clearly content to just do a weird different thing for each episode. Like this clearly kind of establishes that. And so, you know, for what it was, you know, I did enjoy that of it. So I don't really have any other thoughts on episode 3 if you're...
No, we can move on. Yeah.
Mosey along. Episode 4 is kind of that Indiana Jones, Goonies, Journey to the Center of the Earth episode, where they go to the museum and go on a little bit of an adventure and, you know, tomb hunting or whatever for some pages from the Book of Names or something like that.
Yeah.
And what did you think about this one?
So I thought this was I think this was, well, no, there's another fun episode in here, but this one was definitely a very fun episode. I don't understand all that happened because of just because of the exposition that we got in 2 and 3, it's all kind of starting to muddle together a little bit. But I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I thought it was awesome, and it ends in a big way that I don't think really ever got any payoff with the cutting of that lady's throat.
Yeah, I think it's kind of fucked up, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, obviously, like killing people is fucked up. We can safely say as much, but it's kind of I kind of felt like they addressed it in episode 5, just like, I can't believe you did that. And then they kind of just move on from there. And like it kind of feels like they do a lot for Montrose's character, who is Tick's dad. Like I feel like they add a lot of depth to his character in like the back half of the season, but they just kind of conveniently gloss over this.
Yeah.
Just conveniently, like they're just like, oh yeah, let's forget about the fact that like we managed to revive this two-spirit from the dead and, you know, bring her back into this world, and she's cursed to be a siren. Like that's a lot. Like that's fucking a lot to unpack. And like, I'm just gonna slit her throat, right, or their throat, I guess. It's
almost like the ending with episode 2, where you get to this mansion, you got all this shit going on, you got magic, and you got this, and you got that. They just do this crazy like thing with this portal, and you can see like they're trying to do like fucking Adam and Eve shit or whatever, and then the whole thing explodes. It's the same thing here.
Just like,
we saved this lady, and she's like from this village, and she can speak the language of Adam, from like the first language ever, and she's just like this ridiculous person, and she's presumably immortal, I guess. I don't know. We don't know anything about her. Blah 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 blah. Tick's dad just slits her throat at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
what the fuck?
It feels like let's put a lot of interesting plot elements on the board, and then just immediately like
cross them off.
We're good.
It's
weird.
You know,
and you know, it's disappointing, I think, in terms of just the general thrust of the plot, and then it obviously kind of takes on another layer of this being an intersex character, and like that's not really something that's depicted in popular fiction a lot. And then it's just kind of just a let's just kill them off immediately. Like, all right, well, I guess that's a choice. So I didn't really, you know, I guess it's one of those things, like if it had been paid off in a bigger fashion moving forward, then like maybe fine, maybe it's, you know, fine in the scheme of things, but it really does feel like the events of this episode really get swept under the rug as quickly as possible, and it's kind of fucked up, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it's a good episode overall. Just that ending particularly is kind of one that really undermines, I think, kind of the joy of this episode, because it's less horror-y, it's more adventure-y, and like it's pretty fun. It is a pretty fun episode, I think, for the most part. So I don't know. Kind of wish, you know, it just felt like that was a character that could have become part of the team, and then they just kind of cut off that thread immediately for really effectively no reason other than to say that, like, well, they're not important to the rest of this. Like, okay, but fine. I don't know. So,
I don't know.
Any other thoughts? Episode 4?
No, that's it.
All right.
Episode 5. Yeah, real fucked up episode. This one is.
Episode 5, I think, is probably the most fucked up episode in this whole show, which this is a fucked up show. There's no, you know, if, ands, and buts or if, ands, or buts about it. But like, episode 5 is fucking wild. I mean, I think the conceit of the episode is actually very, very interesting. You know, you have Ruby, who is Letty's half sister, who is able to take this potion to become a white woman and like experience, you know, 1950s America as a white woman, which is decidedly very different than the experience of a black woman.
I think that in and of itself is like the most, like if anybody has an issue understanding white privilege, just show them this episode. Well, maybe not the whole episode, because you don't want people to get fucked up, but just the front half of this episode. Before she starts metamorphosing back into the black woman, her skin starts falling off and all that shit.
Yeah. Well, the thing about this show is, like, you know, like maybe it's contained in this episode. No, that happens like throughout the rest of the season. It's just consistent like usage of just the skin shedding and blood and guts and just horrifying shit everywhere. Like, I felt like they like figured out. I will say, I don't know how the hell they did that. I'm sure it's some combination of practical and CG elements, but like it's, you know, equal parts disturbing and like impressive just from a technical standpoint. Like it looks good. Like just the way they did that was really, really like grotesque, but you know, I don't know. It was well done for sure. I would say in terms of just that particular aspect of it, the metamorphosizing part of things. But this is just a fucked up episode. I mean, I think it does an interesting, you know, I think that's so interesting to put Ruby in the shoes of this white woman and what that means. And then she gets this job that she's been trying to apply for the whole season, and, you know,
gets it no problem with after she takes the potion.
Right. Yeah. And you know, and she has these interactions with the black woman who had been hired. I think Tamra, had been hired at that place, and she's like, well, you must have went to school, you must have, had good, job as, and basically, like, she finds out, like, I don't know, this woman wasn't like as qualified as I was, and like, so why the fuck did she get this job? And so she feels kind of personally spurned by that, and you see a rage in Ruby in this episode, which, yeah. I mean, generally throughout the episode, not touching on the ending, which we'll touch on, I think, in a second. Ruby, I think much like a lot of these characters, you talked about the depths that a lot of these characters have, I think, in non-spoilers. I think the depths is necessarily, I think it's more pointing out the fact that, like, there's just an internalized rage for most of these characters, and sometimes that gets expressed in pretty fucking awful ways.
Yeah, sure.
And so, Ruby's kind of shitty to this woman that had been hired because she's clearly kind of envious and jealous of that. And then, at the urging of Christina, who sucks too. She's a white woman, and maybe she's an ally, but no, she just sucks. I think I mean, come on, she sucks. She kind of encourages Ruby to like, hey, you're a white woman, you can do whatever the fuck you want. And then we get this rape sequence at the end, which I gotta say I was definitely not prepared for, and I did not see coming. I mean, I assumed she was just gonna kill the guy, and like, it's kind of an awful thing to say when you kind of put it this way, but like, you're desensitized in a certain way to seeing people get killed in media, and you're less I mean, rape is not, I think, commonly portrayed in media, and certainly not to the graphic extent that happens in this episode. It doesn't hold back in its depiction of a very, very violent sexual assault of this guy who, let's be honest, is a piece of shit, but like,
goddamn, Ruby,
like,
you're really
this is like next level, kind of just being like, I mean, I don't know. It was pretty fucking harsh and pretty brutal to watch. And Anna and I basically kind of took we took the night off after watching this episode. We were just like, we're good, thank you. And I think a lot of that was just like, it was graphic and like brutal, but like there was just not a lot of context or pretext to it. I felt like even like just the ratings at the beginning of the episode were kind of buried in the corner, just being like, there's violence in this episode. And it's just like, that kind of feels like it undersells it a little bit, don't you think?
Oh yeah, that's
pretty
brutal.
I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, it was very jarring. It was just, I don't know. It just feels like something that, obviously HBO doesn't necessarily want to like spoil the episode in the front of the episode to be like, hey, there's some really graphic shit that happens at the end of this episode, so make sure you're in tune to that. But it kind of felt a little tone deaf to just not have anything really that kind of addressed it, and so it was kind of it was visceral. It was a visceral moment for sure, and so. And I'm sure they didn't want to shy away from it, and they wanted to let the viewers feel the impact
absolutely
as much as they can, but I don't know. This was almost like a bridge too far in some respects, but I mean, it certainly got the message across. I guess I'll say that.
Yeah, it did. Ruby does not appreciate the white male hierarchy or anything like that. She just fucking raped that dude with that shoe. Brutal.
Yeah, fucked up.
Brutal.
Fucked up.
So that was, which one was that one? That was
episode 5.
Okay, so I'm reading a plot synopsis here. Oh yeah, William metamorphoses into Christina, so now we know Christina is really William.
Yeah, that's the ending of it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he's like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta go real quick. Don't worry about it. And then we find out that William and Christina are kind of one and the same person, that was interesting. I liked that kind of twist. I thought that was a good twisty twist overall.
Yeah, and which leads me to my next question, because at the very end of the thing it says, as Atticus works on the language, he translates something that causes him to call his former lover in South Korea Gia. What became of that?
Yeah, I didn't really know what was happening. I don't know what the inspiration, it was like die or something like that is what he I feel like they spelled out or something. Like I didn't really follow the connection of
okay,
like why he needed to call her. I don't know. That kind of went over my head. Maybe it makes sense on some level. I guess I just probably can't speak on it, but we can speak about episode 6, which is the a full flashback episode of Atticus in the war meeting Gia and Gia's storyline, which is also a doozy, much like many other things in this show.
Yeah.
A lot of blood and guts in this one too.
People just straight up fucking explode.
Yep.
Yeah, so she's a fox with 9 tails.
Mm-hmm. The Kumiho.
Or something like that.
Yeah. 9-tailed fox spirit. Yeah.
That eviscerates every male that she has sex with.
Yep.
And she has their souls inside of her.
Mm-hmm. So she sees all their memories and like feels them and like knows them. So it's really fucked up too, because like she's molested by her stepfather, and so he becomes a victim, and so like I don't know, it's really fucked up because she like knows
she was
like
a
how
normal
he
girl.
felt. Right. Yes. But like she
was
knows
a
how he
girl,
felt,
and then
about her. I don't know. It's just there's just layers of fucked up in this. So yeah, I mean just the particular aspect of the stepfather molesting her and like that being some sort of love from his sense of things, and then her being able to feel that as like a love is like just a really, really heinous kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, obviously just, taking the step back is, this, she was a girl, and then I think the mom went to like a shaman and basically was trying to, I guess she knew about the molestation, and so she was trying to find a way to like, kill him and punish him basically. And so in comes the Kumiho to act as that way of getting back at the stepfather in this pretty horrific fashion. So I don't know. It's just, there's potentially a young girl trapped, because she's being possessed by this spirit that has to kill 100 people. There's the mom who is basically just encouraging her to murder fucking people because like, I want my daughter back. Yeah. And then in comes Tick, Atticus comes in, who we learn some things about Atticus in this episode that I think really color the complexion of him as a person.
Right.
Is a fucked up episode just through and through. And I think a really good one. I think this is, for me, probably a very yes episode. I think it's one of the best episodes in this season. It's done exceptionally well, but man, is it out there and just fucked up for sure. But yeah,
it's good.
I thought Gia. I thought this was a really good performance from Jamie Chung here. I think she really kind of owned this role and kind of the conflicted nature of like this person who's possessed by this spirit, and and I don't know, all that I thought was just really interesting, and just even kind of the relationship that she kind of grew to develop with the communist nurse, and I don't know, like I thought a lot of it felt very genuine, and we didn't spend a lot of time with a lot of these characters, but it all felt very, like I said, it felt earnest and it felt real. Yeah. And her relationship with Atticus, which is interesting, coming off the context of we know Atticus, and he seems he's like a bookworm, and he's kind of nerdy, and like he went to the war and he came back and he's all jacked, and Letty's like, "Ooh, okay, all right, hello," you know what I mean? And like so they kind of form, they have a spark and kind of go off from there. And this is kind of Atticus before we really see him in episode 1, and war kind of fucks up everyone, but like Atticus does some pretty fucking awful things in this too, killing just an innocent person. And we see
was that him that killed the other nurse, or was he just with the oh wow.
Yeah, so the first nurse gets killed by whoever's in charge of his squad, and then his gun jams, and so he orders Atticus to do it. And so like okay, he was under orders, and like he's a black man serving in the military in the 1950s. Like he's obviously not going to be challenging his superiors, or he's going to be probably facing a firing squad himself. But like it's still that's someone who in following orders is taking the life of an innocent woman. Or even if she was the communist, even if she that second person in the line was the communist, right. Like it doesn't give you the right to just shoot him in the head point blank. You know what I mean? And we even see in the flashes, I think, that Gia has with him later in the episode of him torturing the communist friend who kind of fesses up after 2 people are killed. And so like Tick's maybe not a bad person at heart, but he's complicit in basically all of these things.
The atrocities
so it really,
of war, man.
really I know, it takes I feel like Ruby in episode 5, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm definitely not on Ruby's team anymore. Like, no, that was a step too far, Ruby. Here I'm like, oh, I've kind of liked Tick for the most of this, and like, now I'm kind of just like, oh, Tick's kind of a shitty dude too. So it's like, who do I root for? Who do I root for in this show? And Letty's pretty all right.
Yeah,
for the most part. So yeah, she didn't go to her mom's funeral, but that's a lesser transgression, I would say overall, than murder, or rape. But yeah, I mean, this is just a wild ass episode. Ends with Atticus and Gia's tails kind of coming out when she doesn't want them to. It's just, I don't know, all is just fucking messed up. But it's really good. It's kind of a weird thing to say. I've just been like, wow, this is such a fucked up thing, and I liked it, but.
It's a good episode. It's very good.
Yeah. Episode 7. I Am. This is Hippolyta's journey.
Okay, so Hippolyta's journey I really liked. I thought that was fucking really cool.
This was awesome. I thought this was wonderful. And like almost this is like the most, I guess this is the Aliens episode, basically, right?
Interdimensional beings.
Yeah, interdimensional beings, giant ass fro. It was cool. The
really
visual
cool.
language of it I thought was very, very cool. And Hippolyta's journey from basically being kind of a nobody, the whole episode is basically her like feeling herself kind of shrinking, in her life.
Woman empowerment, man.
That's and realizing about. Hippolyta's fucking probably the most intelligent character on this whole show. She's a mother, and like this is her kind of realizing her value and like stepping into that role. And like, for someone that's obviously, a black woman, she would never have been allowed to see her full potential professionally or educationally or anything like that. But, yeah, I don't know. This was just such a great, great journey of empowerment that it was so, it was interesting as a character study. It was interesting visually and just in terms of kind of where it went, I don't know. It was so out there and so weird, and like we're getting to like almost like interdimensional multiverse shit, and it's just like, what even is this fucking show? And when it's drifted so far from like what episode 1 was and maybe what it wanted to be, but this is the kind of episode where I'm just like, okay, like it's doing its own thing each episode, and like if it like this obviously is such a different show than what episode 1 presented to us, but fuck if it's not close to it, in terms of just kind of the quality of it. So I thought it was great. This is maybe my second favorite episode of the show.
I could definitely get behind that.
I think it's a very yes one as well. I just that journey was just so interesting. The stuff in Paris with Josephine Baker was cool. The Amazon shit, when she's just fucking killing a bunch of Confederates was just like, I don't know. It was a cool way to like take Hippolyta from this. Kind of just, she's a mom.
Just a meek mom, right?
To fucking badass, intelligent,
I think
thoughtful.
the best way to put her before this episode is strictly the wife of George and the mother of
Diana.
The wife of the mother of Diana. That was her character. And then
for sure.
Through her own adventure, she became empowered to see her full potential. And it's just say who you want to be and you can be it.
Yeah,
and it was really cool. It's like you know what I mean? It's she's doing it with like interdimensional travel and everything, but I thought it was a poetic episode in and of itself. You don't have to be this. Like, you're not in a prison. Just say who you want to be and you can be it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I thought that was it was a really fucking cool episode. It's a very yes episode. Definitely I like episode 1 for my own reasons, and I like episode 7, and it's like they're right there, both right there next to each other.
Yeah, but just totally different shows, basically, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But it's cool that you can find both of these episodes in one show. I think that's a neat thing we're saying.
I mean, it is interesting, and it's like a, like I said, they just absolutely went for it, and sometimes
they stuck the landing on this one.
Sometimes they just really stuck the landing, and this was certainly one of those. What about episode 8? Jigabobo, which kind of, this is, both episode 8 and episode 9 kind of intertwine some real life history into the kind of the narrative here, and in pretty interesting and compelling ways. Episode 8 is the memorial for Emmett Till, who, as we've learned, was a close friend of Diana's, which is, that's kind of a pretty big thing. And I think this is when she gets cursed, and she has the two girls, Topsy and Bopsy, who are basically, real life incarnations of racist imagery of black children, just haunting her throughout the episode and dancing in the background, like always just lurking around the corner. This was probably a little bit more traditional horror, I think, in terms of just the visual language of it. But
so I liked, as far as like pure like if you're going to compare this to the horror of episode 3, right? Is that the one with the
that was the haunted house one? Yeah.
Okay, I definitely prefer episode 8. I think episode 8 is a very, very, very good episode. Like you say, the imagery of historical like racist imagery with the girls and stuff, and those following that young girl. I think that's another poetic thing of those what people see you to be is literally following you and haunting you, and I think that's following the death of Emmett Till. I think that is that sets that she would be living in a horrific environment, at that time as a young girl growing up in that place, So I think it's another. I think this is when the. Don't get me wrong. The race through line has peaks and valleys, But I think this is definitely a really poetic way to show that. I think this is a really well made episode. Really like this one.
Yeah. I think it's good. I think the horror imagery particularly works really well. Both as a send up of racist imagery, but also just in a traditional sense of.
Yeah,
it's just effective horror. It's disconcerting. It's unsettling, and when you feel Diana's horror, when she's being stalked by these two girls that just, it starts from a very visceral place of her losing her best friend, or not necessarily her best friend, but one of her good friends, and like just a horrible thing. I think Emmett Till was he 14? I think when he was lynched and killed. Like it's just fucking awful. It's an awful thing that happened in our lives. Well, not our lives, but in our history.
Right.
In American history. And to kind of seed that into this show, to have the memorial as part of that, and, this open casket. And we it's not really depicted here, but just this idea of just being like, we can't be afraid of the people that did this. We need to show what these fuckers did. And, of course, those two fucking assholes got off scot-free in real life. But, I don't know. It just felt really, really hard-hitting, I think, particularly with this one, to kind of start from that and then branch it off into just this horror angle with it. This one, I think, much like the first episode, balanced the racism, the horror of racism with the horror of, traditional horror things like creepy kids, you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. So I think it was just done really well. I think I'd probably go very yes on this one as well. Not as maybe good as either 1 or 7, but still very good.
Yeah, I would say that this is a top tier episode. I would just say that and be done with it.
Yeah.
Also the visceral nature of like the curse.
Yeah.
Spitting in the fucking bugs, and then the painting following you.
That was gross.
Just super fucking creepy and weird and gross.
Yeah.
Also, didn't that dude have a black body or something from the previous episode?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a thing.
He's got a fucking guy in his closet that he's just sitting there,
that's
like all
the
fucked
guy.
up. Like, yeah. Jesus.
Fuck.
Everyone in here is fucked up. All right, episode 9, Rewind 1921. Time travel episode. Everyone sets off to get the book of names from the family house in 1921 Tulsa. Slight spoilers for another HBO series that came out a year prior to this. This is the second time that the Tulsa Race Massacre has been depicted in an HBO series. It's the opening set piece, I think, for Watchmen. Which I think you have not seen, and
but you
I don't say that to spoil you. It's very, very early in the season, as it being the first thing that happens. But yes, I think you should watch Watchmen as a side note for sure. But
we talked about this before, right? Why we didn't learn about this?
That's what I'm wondering. I can't remember if we had talked about it when I talked about Watchmen at some point. But yeah, this is insane, and Watchmen depicts it in kind of a different manner. It's this one is like it's almost the backdrop, whereas I feel like in Watchmen it's almost kind of the forefront. Like you have someone that's really just in the thick of it. But it's incredibly fucked up, and this is the kind of shit that even in Oklahoma where this shit happened, it wasn't. I mean, I was looking at this yesterday. It wasn't in textbooks until the last decade, and it's how you just gonna bury this shit? You know what I mean? That's
jeez.
It's such an unspeakable thing that happened, and no one fucking knows about it, and it's
no honestly, wonder things are repeating themselves and shit. Nobody, you don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just purely insane, though. It's just droves of white people going out and deliberately trying to kill people and set businesses on fire. They used fucking private planes at one point and dropped fucking basically not really bombs necessarily, bombs but basically bombs. And it's this is so insane that this actually happened, and it's just not a common thing. It's we could talk about so many other things where, huge major, tragedies that happen in people's lives. And this is something that's just well, yeah, I don't know. It blows my mind. I mean, obviously there's a reason that it's buried, is because it was the white people that were the perpetrators. And so why should we care? But it is just really, really baffling. But it forms the backbone of a very, very compelling episode here, I think.
Yes, it does. Lovecraft Country. Is a good episode. Also, on a much less historical note and much less important note, I think this is the episode where Hippolyta gets blue hair.
She does get blue hair. She's
fucking hold the time machine open.
She's the motherboard for the time machine.
Just fucking. That was badass. Right. That was cool.
Yeah, I definitely thought she was a goner for and then she just gets blue hair and she seems mostly okay otherwise. So good on her. But yeah, that was pretty wild. Yeah, I mean this was just a wild episode. I mean a lot of good stuff. I mean, Letty, interacting with Tick's family and having kind of experienced she's got the invulnerability spells, but she kind of sits there through burning house while other people die around her, and this whole horrifying event, unfolds. Tick has some really good moments with his dad, and his dad kind of confronting his sexuality and how he confronted that sexuality when he was a kid, and granted at this point, the show is clearly forgiven Montrose for killing the character from episode 4, and they're more concerned with this aspect of his personality. And I think that, to its credit, I think Montrose is a very interesting character with a lot of depth by the end, but they didn't really. It's like they just glossed over certain things in favor of other things, and that's kind of disappointing. But this still has some really good shit in this episode. It's got that Harry Potter-esque shit where, it's actually Atticus at the end, who's the stranger with the bat beating the shit out of everyone.
Yeah, that was Robinson awesome. Style, I really enjoyed that.
Which was good. Yeah. It was kind of a fun kind of thing. So, time travel doesn't make sense. Who cares? It's fine. But I don't know. I did enjoy this episode. I think this is another one of the good episodes for sure. One of the better episodes in this series, I'd say. So, all right, let's come full circle to episode 10, entitled "Full Circle."
Also called "Full Circle."
I didn't love this episode. I thought it was fine. You know what I mean? But I just felt like as a season finale, it didn't. I don't know. This just. It was fine. You know what I mean? Totally fine, I guess, to use our rankings. But I I felt like it kind of was very slapdash in terms of its plot elements and just running through a lot of things. And I felt like it really kind of just glossed over certain things, like Ruby's maybe dead, and it's just like, well, that's a revelation. We'll not address that really with any sort of depth. Tick's maybe dead by the end of the episode. What does that mean? I mean, maybe that's a season 2 thread that can be addressed, but I just kind of felt like...
I think he's pretty fucking dead.
He seems pretty fucking dead, I would think. This is a show
But we don't know exactly what happened. It blacked out.
Yeah, right? I don't know. I just kind of felt like they had maybe too much plot again in this episode, much like they did with episode 2, and they're like, shit, we got to cram it all into one.
What was the black shit going into the sky?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what that was. Gia's hanging out with them, and she's like going into the black shit, and I'm like, I don't know what she's doing.
And then her tails go crazy out of her eyeballs and shit. I don't quite know.
Right, like, you know, she's got some sort of like power that she's using, but like, I don't know what she's doing with that. I don't really kind of understand what the spells were. Like, they resurrect Titus and take a piece of his heart, liver, I don't even know what, and it's part of some sort of spell. It's going to counteract Christina's immortality spell, and then the spirits are getting set free, and it's just like, there's just so much shit going on in here, and I'm not really following a lot of it. Like, it's just, it was just so much packed into it that, like, this is kind of a microcosm of the series in general. It's just like, we got to do everything. And it's like, sometimes it works, and then like sometimes it doesn't. And I just felt like this, especially as an ending point, kind of just felt a little flat, I think, overall. It was just like, it just, you know, I think especially coming off the back of 2 really, really good episodes, it just felt like circling back to kind of the weaker aspects of the show and just not really handling them in a super deft fashion. So, I don't know.
You know that little Diana...
Did you like it?
No, I thought it was all over the place. I didn't understand what happened. Obviously, I know she just wants to be immortal.
Yeah, I got that.
Like a simple thing. But then what's-her-face had a different spell or something, and she did something, and it wasn't just her, it was all white people. I don't know what was the deal with that. I didn't quite hear all the dialogue. Do you remember?
I don't know exactly how it happened, but apparently white people can't use magic anymore, which, like, fine. That seems like, all right, well, that's probably for the best, really. So I don't know, but I don't know how that came to pass. I don't really understand the mechanics of that, because like she wasn't invulnerable because the spell got revoked, and then she fell to her death maybe, and you know, she's pregnant. I guess we didn't talk about that. So maybe her child is now dead too. Like, but no, she's fine. She's coming in. She has some sort of spell. I don't know. I was very lost through most of this episode. I will happily admit to that.
I'm glad both of us are in the same boat. Diana does have a bionic arm.
She does have a fucking metal arm, and she just fucking
explodes her neck or something.
Christina's neck. Yeah,
that was
I didn't really
cool.
get that either. I mean, like,
I didn't get her binding with the dog. The not the dog. It's not a dog. What are they?
Shoggoth. Yeah. Stranger Things thing. Yeah.
So why was there the black one? Did I miss that earlier in the season?
I think that was Atticus's one that came up and saved them when they were when he was about to get shot by the police. There was one that spawns from the ground. I think that his spell that he had tried to do earlier created that. And so clearly there was some sort of bond where that was a protector for him, and it had some sort of bond with Diana, which we kind of saw. I think there's like little flashes that maybe Gia sees kind of as she's in the smoke thing. I don't know. Like I said, it's just so much, and it's dense, and it kind of is just like, maybe some of this works if this is a 2-hour finale, but it's so kind of compressed and like uneven that it didn't really land, I think, with the impact that it obviously wanted to land with. So that was disappointing. I mean, I thought it was fine. Like, it wasn't bad. I was just like, I don't know. Like, it didn't really feel like it was bringing together the sum of of all its parts. So I don't know.
And what's-her-face just straight up slashed his arms. I mean, there was no like slowness about it. There was no like we're gonna make a big fucking thing about it. It was just fwah, fwah, and he's done. He's just sitting there bleeding all over the fucking place, just blood pouring out. Just took a shower in his blood. It's pretty brutal. This is very brutal.
It's definitely very brutal.
Also, the falling was brutal when she fell out of the tower. She got thrown from the tower.
Yeah,
that was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know, just brutal episode that I didn't get a lot from. So, there's that. It was almost like that other brutal episode I got more out of that other brutal episode with the shoe, but than I did this one.
I felt like most of that episode worked, whereas this one, the minority of the episode is what worked. Like, you know,
right.
A lot of it was just so kind of put together and fast paced that it kind of lost what it was trying to achieve, I guess. I don't even know. So I don't know. I mean, it kind of left me in a sour place in a sense of just being like, you know, I mean, maybe I'll probably watch a season 2, and like, you know, if there was 10 more episodes to watch starting tomorrow, I'd probably just start on them. But like, you know, in a year's time or something like that, like, I don't know. I feel like they're going to almost have to sell me on the show again, because like, what even does the show look like in season 2? Like, what do you expect it to go? Where do you expect it to go from here? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's a show that obviously is content to just go here or go there as it pleases, but like, what's the thrust of this show?
That's just anymore? It. And that's what I meant by what I said in recommendations. I hope that for season 2, I will watch a season 2. I just hope that there's a refinement of what they're trying to do or what they're trying to convey. Because now, I mean, there was the sentiment that that one lady that had a spell that got locked away or whatever for generations, she had a spell that would change everything forever. I guess it's the black people being able to do magic and white people can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that look like, and what do they accomplish with that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and is Christina still alive? If she is, does she get out from underneath the rock? Presumably, she would eventually get out from underneath the rock.
Well,
people presumably save her.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Like, is she still able to recover from getting her trachea crushed or whatever? So yeah, I don't know.
Because there's no more magic. Does it like null and void her magic? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what where do they go from here?
I feel like it was
point.
I feel like it was trying to say that she was dead and like clean slate moving forward for like, you know, black people are able to use magic, and you know, what does that mean moving forward? Like, I don't know. Like, I just like, obviously there's going to be some sort of threat at some point, but I feel like this season could stand alone, and that would, like, it didn't really feel like it left so many plot threads lingering that we needed to go back and address them. So, you know, as a season 1, as a potentially full series experience, like, I think it's solid enough overall, and it works well enough overall that I enjoyed it. But, you know, maybe a season 2 would kind of serve to just being like, all right, maybe that finale wasn't kind of what we were looking for. Here's season 2 pushing in an interesting and new direction that maybe wraps everything up in a more satisfying manner. Maybe. I guess to be determined, but I'm hopeful, I guess. I don't know. But I just really got to see where they go from here, because I'm glad I'm not in charge of writing the show, because I would have no ideas to offer up at this point. I'm kind of at a loss. So I guess, yeah. I guess we'll wait and see on what happens with a hopeful season 2, which, you know, may be delayed in terms of filming and stuff like that anyway. So might be waiting a long time, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's Lovecraft Country, a very thorough analysis of Lovecraft Country. So hopefully our listeners enjoyed that. Something you mentioned before the episode, and I feel like we haven't shouted our boys out in a little bit of time. Our friends over at the Ink to Film podcast, I know, have, I think to this point, put out a few episodes on Lovecraft Country in terms of both the novel and at least the first 5 episodes of the show. And I'm sure if it's not already out by the time this goes up, it'll be out shortly. They'll be covering the back half of the series as well. So check them out. I haven't had a chance to listen to it, having just finished the show myself literally earlier today. So I'm sure they have some interesting thoughts, and I'd be curious to see how it compares to the novel, certainly. So inktofilm.com is the website if anyone wants to check out some additional thoughts on Lovecraft Country beyond what we have for our listeners. But yeah, do you yourself have any other final thoughts, Lovecraft Country as a series?
No, just I hope I hope if we do get a season 10, I hope it's a refinement of their process. We get more episodes like 1 and 7 and 8, and I don't know. I just hope they make a decision to refine their story a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So there you have it. Okay, been up to anything over the past week you want to talk about? Yes.
So I made a conscious decision to usually my catching up section is kind of all over the place because I forget what I actually do. But I got a present from one of our guests, Henrique Jamie, Back to the Future.
In 4K.
In 4K, the Ultimate Trilogy. It also came with a hoverboard, which is badass.
Okay.
A miniature hoverboard, I should say. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, full size might be a little bit of a pain in the ass to ship.
Right. But then on Sunday, I went to Hollywood Studios. And I will tell you what I did at Hollywood Studios. I rode the Rise of the freaking Resistance, dude. I finally rode it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh,
That's
nice.
the new ride. That's the one that has the digital queue. You have to like be in. You got to be in MGM like before it starts, and you got to like queue up digitally and stuff. I finally rode it, and I will tell you, it is the most incredible experience I've ever had at Disney World.
Ooh, okay. All right.
It is simply like I rode the Millennium Falcon ride, and that was pretty cool. Like I think I told you about it. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's cool. The queue's real cool. I'm all about it. But Rise of the Resistance is freaking mind-blowing. It is incredible. I got goosebumps multiple times.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, I mean, what kind of a ride is it? Like, you know, obviously you don't need to give me a play-by-play, but like, you know,
no, so
coaster,
it's
simulator, like what will...
There's a it's almost like, God, I know there's a ride like it.
Okay,
but I can't.
I mean, is it like more like
is it
like Spider-Man, or is it like?
Well, Spider-Man's like a full-on. Spider-Man's kind of like a full-on simulator.
Yeah,
almost.
But you know, but it's like you know, you're still on a track. You know, you're not sitting in place. And I assume, I mean, is this closer to like
a portion of the ride is like that?
Okay, is it
a portion
like
of the ride is like you're on a track and you're going around. You get in one thing and it's kind of like just like a bumpy thing. It just bumps around a little bit. And then it puts you in a different queue. So
like
but the queue, but yes, it puts you. So you go through one queue. You hop on a little bumpy thing, and then it puts you into a different queue. And then it puts you on a track ride, right? So it's just like a thing moving around the track. And it's very, very much like Spider-Man. It's been a long time since I rode Spider-Man, so I thought it was like a full-on simulator, but I guess you're right. It is on a track, just with different screens and stuff. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So with this ride, there's far less... I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still screens, but this ride has a lot more practical effects. And it's really fucking cool. But I think the best parts about this ride is... So Spider-Man's like the ride's kind of like all over the place all the time, blah 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 blah. You know, this one's much more tame in what it does. But when it does do something, it surprises you, which is really cool. The other thing is the wow moments of this happen in the queue.
Okay.
So there's multiple. There's you hop on the bumpy ride thing, and then you get off the bumpy ride thing, fucking goosebumps. Right? Because everything's in such intimate groups. You're in little intimate groups as you do these things. Now, I don't know what this experience looks like when they open it up and you don't have to do the digital queue thing anymore. I think a lot of the experience happens because you're in such small pockets. You're in boarding groups. Which I think is a huge thing. So I do appreciate, I had a problem with it before, but now I appreciate why they've done it. Because you can tell that at one point, I think they're going to open it up full blast, and I don't know what that looks like. I think that the experience becomes less impactful. But anyways, so you go out, you hop on the bumpy thing, you go through the ride, you go through the queue, and then you actually enter in like a little show area. There's a show area there. So you're queued up, and then you wait, and then you go into a show area. You get off your show area, and the way you get off of the show, it's just the way that they blend the ride with the different queues and with the different experiences is ridiculously creative. It's almost like when you're playing a video game and you don't know a loading screen. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's like the
so
first time you
seamless,
played a video
you can't
game,
tell.
and it was a seamless transition between like a cutscene and gameplay.
Yeah.
It's almost like that. Like you ride the ride. and then
God
you
of
hop
War,
on-
the 2018 video game in a nutshell, kind of.
Correct.
Just
as an
continuous
analogy.
one-shot video game type thing. Yeah. Okay.
So the whole thing becomes a ride, an experience. It becomes an experience versus just a ride in a series of queues. And it's fucking incredible. I can't tell you enough how awesome it is. Sarah, who is not like 100% everything Star Wars, said it's the best ride she's ever ridden.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I mean,
mind-blowing.
You're making me very jealous, obviously. I mean, well, I mean, Anna and I were planning on coming to Florida this past August, and COVID-19 kind of got in the way of that. And I don't think I'm going to be going to Disney until we're in a post-vaccine environment, just realistically. But maybe they're handling things, but just in terms of traveling and stuff like that, it's just not really something that's in the cards, I think, for either of us. But it is making. I mean, we wanted to do a Disney trip, in August, and it's like, well, maybe that'll just get punted for a year or something like that. But it's just making me more excited for the
Star Wars Land
for being able to experience all that. It's one of those things you take it for granted when you live in Florida in a certain sort of way, where you're just like, hey, Universal's 2 hours away, no big deal. I'll just go whenever, and get a pass, and then you move up to Big Bad Pennsylvania, and it's just like, well, shit, that's many miles away. So yeah, I think we'll have to take a trek down to Disney and check it all out for ourselves, hopefully in due time. So yeah, sounds very cool. So thanks for sharing that. I felt like I was almost on the ride with you for parts of it, but it certainly will not compare it to the actual thing, I'm sure. So what do you have in your hand right now?
I became
Listeners
inspired
can't see it right now, but you can describe it.
The Rise of the Resistance ride, and I got ignore that sticker. I got a Darth Vader lightsaber at the little store there at Galaxy's Edge, and I got the extended lightsaber. So I had a lightsaber built, or I did the building ceremony thing at the place there,
right?
Magic Kingdom, or not Magic Kingdom, but what's it called? And they give you
Hollywood.
They give you a 32-inch blade. I bought a 36-inch blade for Vader's lightsaber. All I could picture was that scene in Rogue One. And I was like, I need the longest lightsaber so I could get the full length of the animation of the saber igniting. So here you can listen to it.
This is where our listeners are really missing out, not having the full video experience, but we're working on it. All right, I'm getting quiet now. Ooh, that looks very badass. Yeah.
Listen to the...
Ooh.
Yeah, so anyways, that's Vader's lightsaber in a nutshell.
Very nice. Very,
It's long,
very
it's
nice.
Cool. What else did I do? Oh, so the other day, yesterday, in fact, I sold a vehicle to a young guy, born in 2001. How old would that make him?
19 potentially.
19. 19-year-old man, potentially. And he was telling me that he had this app called Robinhood. Well, he came in with a down payment for a car. He had been there previously. We couldn't get him into a car because he didn't have enough money down. Anyways, needless to say, he came in like a month later. We still had the car he wanted, so he came in and he dropped $2,500 on this car. He was elated. He was very happy. I found some creative financing for him through a credit union, through a program that I had just discovered. And we were able to get him in this car. We were test driving said car, and he was talking about how he invested in Snapchat over the course of 2 weeks and turned $55 into $3,500 over 3 weeks. And I'm like, God damn, if this dude can do it, I certainly can do it. Like, there's something to be said there. He took he took $55 with Snapchat and turned it into $3,500. What am I doing? So anyways, he sent me a link to this app called Robinhood. If anyone is interested, I will send you a link, and I get a free stock and you get a free stock. But I put $100 on this app. So we'll see what happens. I will keep you posted on my stock things. My account got approved. I really just want to educate myself on the lingo and how to properly do it and what the words mean within the app and all that stuff, the terminology, and how it works before I actually start investing. But it is a thing. It is happening. I have money on a portfolio management application, and I am taking a dive in the stock market. So if I lose it really quick, then we'll know that I'm not meant for the stock market. But if I can turn $100 into something else, then we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. I'll keep you guys posted on my life in the stocks.
Well, I guess I'll say best of luck on that front, and also just, even if you lose your $100, just maybe call it at that and try not to double down on certain things. I think,
correct,
particularly with Robinhood, it's a pretty easy to use app that kind of invites interactions and stuff like that. And I know that there have been I think there was at least one case of someone that really just got themselves into the deep end, and it ended very poorly for him. So I say be vigilant, be smart. Try to do your best with it, and if he makes some big bucks, then great, you can bring it back and invest it right into the podcast, right? Or in your personal life, that's fine too. But
well,
yeah,
the reason there is a reason that I don't gamble a whole lot. I know what my tendencies are. So if like I said, I took $100. We'll see what becomes of it, and if I have a knack for it, great. If not, then I know that I do not have a knack for it, and off to greener pastures. But I've been inspired by the homie I sold a car to, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
What you been up to?
I guess keep us posted. Not a whole lot on my end. Keeping up with the playoffs. Rays are on the cusp of elimination. They are actually playing as we record. So our listeners, by the time they hear this, will know the winners of the MLB World Series. I think Game 6 is tonight. And Game 7 will be tomorrow. So that is what it is. So congrats to the Rays, or congrats to the Dodgers, I guess is probably what I'll say at this point, just to future-proof this episode as much as possible. But I'm hoping the Rays can stave off elimination for at least one more game and bring it to a nice, conclusory, fitting Game 7 and go from there. But if the Dodgers do manage to pull it off, then hey, they had the best record in baseball, and maybe that was for a reason. So yeah, I'm watching a bit of that. Other than that, I gotta say, I really have not been up to a whole lot. I mean, obviously, much of that is just due to binging Lovecraft over the weekend. Had a paper that I had to write, so that obviously took some time too. Lost a Sunday to that. The only other thing that I think I did that's I think worth mentioning is I spent some time out at you just mentioned Henrique, who gifted you the Back to the Future set, and I went out and spent a few hours with him and Eastleen out at their new place in Exton, Pennsylvania,
nice.
Which is about an hour outside of Philadelphia, and we did kind of an outdoor barbecue type thing, which was really, really nice. Had some beers, had some steaks, had some grilled veggies, and caught up, and I was able to see their new place, and it was really, really nice to kind of, get out of the city for one, but obviously to spend time with them. And I went with me, so it was the four of us, and
oh, that's cool.
He's got a really nice outdoor space, kind of just basically directly out of his back screen door. So yeah, it was a good time. And
lovely weather, I'm sure.
Weather was great. Yeah, actually, it got really shitty the following day, but we went on a Saturday, and it was just pretty much perfect weather. I mean, it was cool enough that it was comfortable out there, without being too cold, and not hot enough that we were miserable or anything out there. So it worked out really well. Had another bottle of the Green Goblin No. 2 pumpkin ale, which was delicious, and I even got another one to take back with me. Not to brag or anything, but it's very exciting. So yeah, I mean, honestly, that's pretty much been it on my end. I haven't watched a whole lot. I haven't really been up to a whole lot. It's been just kind of hanging out and Lovecrafting, more or less. So yeah, it's kind of one of the few probably instances in the podcast where I feel like you're catching up severely outweighs mine, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So that's all I've got for our listeners. We can go ahead and call it an episode if you're ready to do that.
We can call it an episode.
Well, then let's do just that. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. And if you want to support us on Patreon, if you are feeling so generous and want to contribute $2 a month, you can get access to any of our forthcoming bonus episodes that we will eventually have out for you guys, like the Studio Ghibli episode that we've talked about for months and months and months now, as well as early access to all of our regular episodes. We have a website, watchrepeat.com, if you want to check that out for links to our socials or catching up on any previous episodes, anything like that. Otherwise, you can head directly to Twitter and follow us at WRRPod, or you can head to Facebook and like our page just by searching for Watch Review Repeat. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, if you have some thoughts on Lovecraft Country or anything else, head to your local email account and send us an email through that local email account at watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. And so our next episode, which we haven't technically discussed amongst ourselves, but Borat's subsequent movie film is out on Amazon now, and I thought, yes. Technically we probably could have covered it this episode, but this felt like a good time to do a horror Halloween spooky episode, as we've well established by this point. So I think maybe we'll catch up on Borat for our next episode, and that'll be fitting because it'll be an episode that will release only days after Election Day, and that's the kind of movie that was clearly designed to be released just ahead of Election Day. So I feel like that'll all kind of be a little fitting there. So look forward to maybe some coverage on Borat 2, and since this indeed will be the last episode that goes up before Election Day, I will simply say vote. Use your
vote
right.
counts.
You have a right to vote, so your vote will count. Wherever you're registered, make it count. Maybe you've made plans already. Maybe you haven't voted yet, but make a plan. Be ready and vote. Have your voice heard, and we'll see what the tenor of this next episode's like, but or maybe the one after that, depending on when we record. But
oh gosh,
yeah,
I hate election years.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking and terrifying in many ways. So yeah, hopefully this is a calm before a storm, whatever storm that may be. Hopefully a nice, generous thunderstorm that just sprinkles our crops and makes things great, and not one that is a hurricane. So we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with things. So vote. I think I will just leave it at that. Vote. And so I'll say, in addition to voting, be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes, and vote.